Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite deck types, or there aren't that many deck types, but these are really cool, and that's Control and Mill, or Control and Stall are like kind of the same thing. People kind of use them interchangeably, but anyway, so Snorlax Control is what we're going to be looking at, as well as Great Tusk Mill. And all these lists, just like I think my previous video, or maybe the video before that, I don't know my upload schedule, but these are all decks that won tournaments in Japan, which is pretty cool. First of all, we're going to take a look at some Snorlax control decks, though. For those of you who don't know, Snorlax has its ability that pretty much says if it's in the active, your opponent's active cannot retreat. So this deck lost one major piece to rotation, or actually a lot of decks lost it. I made a list of like the biggest trainers rotating, and I think this was the third biggest one, in my opinion. That was Echoing Horn, which says it's an item that lets you put a Pokemon from your opponent's discard back into play. And then obviously, if it's in play, then you can trap it, right? That's the idea. You can also grab it from their hand using Erica's Invitation. But now, like if you're not scared about the discard, then it's a bit of an issue. Luckily, there's this Mantine, which is actually interesting. Put basic from either player's discard pile onto that player's bench. So you can use it as Echoing Horn as an attack for your opponent or yourself. So you can recover a Pokemon, which is useful. The main use will be to obviously get one of your opponent's Pokemon onto the bench, but there are times if you face some unfortunate scenario where you may need to attack with it. And it's honestly not that crazy to do for yourself, although generally, as I said, you're targeting your opponent with that, and then it ends your turn being an attack, so a bit of an issue. First, I want to talk about the ace spec use, and I think it's the same in all of them. Yeah, is it the same in every deck? Yeah, it is. And that is. Oh, I need to. I'm just gonna scroll down. Let me. I usually scroll down on all of them so I can fit them in. It's a little hard to fit. You can see the tops and bottoms are chopped off a little. But anyway, Hero's Cape or whatever, Hero Cape. The trainer translations are not finalized. They do the right thing, but the translation for the name might be incorrect. But Hero Cape, the Pokemon this card is attached to gets 100 more HP. And then I think some of the lists run Luxurious Cape, yeah, which gives you 100 more HP. You give up an extra prize if you're a single prizer. Um, but yeah, Hero's Cape is really useful. And then obviously we have Snorlax, we have Mimikyu to wall. I'm going to talk about this a little, but it walls V's and EXs, which is nice. Chiyu EX, its attack mills 2. There is no Crabominable V anymore. That rotates. Also, that's like a minor loss. It's not nothing because you can't use Force Seal Stone. I mean, Crabominable V is generally worse than Chiyu. There is a Radiant Charizard. You can use Radiant Charizard, but I personally am not a big fan of that. A Rotom V and Pidgeot V, of course, in this deck as well. Rotom for the end of turn draw, and Pidgeot V for a target for Force Seal Stone also just stops you from decking out. And there is no more path, so you don't need to worry about that. And you play almost no path bumps. And then this one, Artizone, which could be useful. I don't know if any of these play. Oh yeah, some do play Disruption at stadiums, but we'll take a look at that. And I think you have 5 Snorlax lists and 3 Great Tusk lists. There we go. Of course, we see Arven Engine. That's pretty common with Force Seal Stone and Hero's Cape being great tool targets, as well as Bravery Charm and Defiance Vest. Defiance Vest, I personally would play a second copy of. I don't know the meta super well, but if you trap a Pokemon that does 40 damage or less, yeah, for this list, 40 damage or less, then your opponent will not be doing any damage. It reduces damage by 40, assuming you're down in prizes. And also counter catcher, 4 copies of that, pretty normal. But there is no prime catcher. You don't need to play prime catcher because you have counter catcher, which is quite frankly just as good, if not better, for most of the game, and it's not your race spec. Aside from that, we have Misfortune Sisters, 3 copies. Misfortune Sisters milling items is really important against Lost Zone. Lost Zone, I think, is still a bad matchup, but you do have. I don't know. That matchup doesn't seem great, but you can. That's a winnable one if Lost Zone gets unlucky or whatever. And then a big other really good card is Airy. This card is insane potentially. It's a supporter that says look at your opponent's hand, discard 2 item cards you find there. That's just like insane because if you hit 2 items, if you hit 2 switch, it's insane. If you hit other stuff, it's good. Hand disruption is good. Like disrupting their hand, just discarding cards from it. This means you can Iono them or stops them from Ionoing to preserve the game, and it's really useful. It's not, I don't know, it's kind of like Misfortune Sisters, but it also lets you see their hand, which can be useful. Although more likely for your other supporters, like Erica's Invitation, to drag a Pokemon from their hand into play and then gust it up. Silene, Yell's Cheer, Palpad for like the infinite supportive recovery and any card recovery as well. penny to repeatedly heal. You can essentially play unlimited. I'd probably drop a Silene for Palpad, but I get the double Silene. It can be used to recover Hero's Cape as well. Keep in mind, Hero's Cape can, one, get lost zoned, so then it's lost zoned, and then you can't get it back. Uh, but two, it can be recovered by Silene, which is really useful. This is a pretty normal Snorlax control list. Oh, there's no more Peonia. That's a big deal as well. Or it's kind of a big deal. We see a second Hisuian Heavy Ball, though, which honestly forms the same use. And I guess that's why there's double Silene. If you prize Silene, you probably lose. I mean, you don't lose, actually. You still have an infinite deck with Pidgeot V. You just don't have infinite resource recovery. So I guess I got that there. Yeah, that's fair. Um, yeah, there aren't great ways to hit accessing your prizes either. And this list runs, call this an experiment. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of that in control. This other list runs Iono. This list runs one, but less Iono, less Arven. I personally would rather see a list like this. But then very similar stuff, except for the Colas experiment. They're in Crammer, which is really fun. Um, in control, against control, there are different ways of approaching it. But if you play super slowly and like super conservatively, where you apply almost no pressure, which is the thing you can do. You can think, oh, I'm going to hit you for like 10 every turn, which is a thing. Especially this list doesn't even uh, run Defiance Vest, so you can just hit them for 10 every turn. But now you could be like, well, you're hitting me with your like Sabble or something. Like, I'm just going to KO it with Crammer and win. So that is a thing. We do see the Mimikyu again. As I said, I'll talk about that in a minute. Pretty similar stuff aside from that. Though we do see Luxurious Cape, and yeah, I think Defiance Vest is very good. I would use Temple Sinnoh as well to disrupt special energy, which can be useful, although I don't think it's super useful in the format because Double Turbo is good, but I don't know. It's not bad. Lugia is pretty good. I'm probably gonna make a video talking about Lugia. Lugia is actually very good, but this isn't actually insane against it because it's mostly just colorless energy. It's just not bad. It's decent, but I guess it stops jet energy, which is the main use. This next list here does something I really like, and it runs a luminous energy, and this other list runs psychic energy. That means you can attack with Mimikyu. I think you should pretty much almost never play Mimikyu in a deck you can't attack with it. I know there is some value Mimikyu in Snorlax Stall and Snorlax slash Snorlax Control, because you can use it to uh, wall and then like create weird situations for your opponent, forcing him to switch and just causing him into weird, unpleasant circumstances. But for the most part, I'm not like a massive fan. We do also see Lure Module coming in here. Just one. Any of these other lists run it? Oh wait, no, we have four Great Tusk lists. There we go. We have four of each. I was wrong about that. Oh, this one. So only one runs lore module. For those of you who don't know, which I think is a lot of people, lore module, each player reveals the top three cards of the deck and puts all Pokemon they find there into their hand. Then they shuffle other cards back. This card's absolute garbage in any deck except for control. Because in control, if they hit a Pokemon, presumably a basic, actually, yeah, just a basic. If they hit an evolution, it doesn't matter. If they hit a basic, then you can go Eric's Invitation and just it up, guaranteed, which is useful. I've played decks with lore module. I don't know how I feel about it. It's okay. It's not bad. I think some people think it's really bad. It's kind of sketchy. I don't know how I feel about one. You're probably just gonna miss. Like you're gonna play it and then it's not gonna work, and then you didn't really get anything off of it, as opposed to playing a bunch. And then you can have pretty good odds of hitting it, and then Eric's invitationing. Uh, it's fine though. I don't think it's a bad card in this deck. I think it's in general it's a pretty terrible card because it's like worse than Great Ball, and it helps your opponent. This is Defiance Fast, similar stuff for the most part for the rest of the list as well. Next list. Oh yeah, I was like, what Pokemon is this list missing? It's not. It's missing Cramorant, which isn't normal. This list again, pretty normal stuff going on here. No Defiance Vest. We do see Lost City though. We see some really interesting things. We see two Fire Energies, which is pretty normal, but is important for here because you can attack with Chiyu and a Psychic, or two Psychics, so you can actually attack with Pidgeot V as well, which is a thing. It's very hard to do, but it is possible. But we have Lost City, and Lost City can obviously be useful for taking knockouts. If you take a knockout with Lost City, then they go to the Lost Zone, and this I think is decent, although I would not hit a Radiant Charizard in this list, so they can actually more consistently knock stuff out, which is really useful, right? Knocking things out, and then Lost Zone can win you games. For example, a deck might have one singular counter to Mimikyu, you Lost Zone it, and now they just lose, kind of, hopefully. Or just like, what if they play a Minior, right? You can KO Minior. Lumineer I think has 70 HP. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah, so you can knock it out with Mimikyu, which may be, honestly, that might be the main use of Mimikyu in this deck, or the main use of Velocity, and then you can attack with Mimikyu. Uh, and I do like being able to attack with Mimikyu, as I said. I think it's pretty powerful. Like Flaffy's rotating, but that's an example that you might know that hits through Mimikyu kind of badly. Um, Aside from that, nothing too crazy, but I do like this list. I like this list a lot. If I play this deck post rotation, I'll probably be playing it like this, or cut Mimikyu. I actually don't think cutting Mimikyu is awful. I know it can be useful. I'm not an amazing player either, so I like complex decks. I will say that, but um, one thing with control, this is a great tip for anyone playing control. Make your list yourself, or take a list and tweak it. Like learn, oh, this is not something I like, or this is something I like, then put it in. And then learn from that. If you just copy someone else's control list, you're gonna kind of struggle, because control is a deck that, in my opinion, like decks like Lost Zone and Arceus, that are kind of toolboxy and have a lot of options. If you're not playing it the way you want it, you're just gonna not play it well, right? You're gonna be like, oh, I just don't feel like this card has a lot of value, and then never play that card, and then lose because you got like dead cards in your deck that don't you're never playing. So if you don't like Mimikyu, or if you're like, oh, I don't want Lure Module, then don't play the list with Lure Module, or or if you're like, oh, I don't like what's the supporter? Like I don't like Colress, don't play Colress. I don't like Giacomo, or I forget how to pronounce it. Giacomo. I don't know. Um, if you're like, I don't like whatever card here. Like, honestly, if you're like, I don't like um counter catcher, I don't know why you wouldn't like counter catcher and control, but if you're like, I don't like it, don't play it. It's really good. I'd highly recommend you play it, and I'd highly recommend you like it. But if for some reason you find yourself like never using it, which is weird, like I think people would more likely not use supporters. Like I'm not a big fan of Arvin, but I've kind of grown to like it. But um, anyway, I might have a video at some point on deck building control, although I'm not amazing at it, but I can. I think I'm like better than the average player because I play control and deck build control some. Control is honestly one of the decks I'm decent at building. Uh, Aside from that, pretty normal stuff. Rod can get back energy and Pokemon. Team Yellowstream can get back Pokemon and supporters. Some people forget that it actually gets back Pokemon, and it can, and that's useful. And now we're moving on to Great Tusk. Great Tusk is a Pokemon that if you played an ancient supporter from your hand for 2 colors, you mill 4. Otherwise, you mill 1. Milling 1 is not very good. This list is very straightforward. Oh, we see Hand Trimmer. Hand Trimmer is an interesting card as well. Both players discard cards from their hand until they have 5 cards. This is incredibly useful for this deck. For control, you could play it as well. I'm actually surprised none of these 4 lists ran it. The reason why, I guess, is because you're going to be discarding a lot of your own cards, which you don't really want. Like a lot of your own cards. I feel like it's still useful though. Like there are situations in which it can literally win you the game, or no, it probably won't literally win you the game, but it can be very good, because you're just destroying your opponent's hand, and then you can hand trimmer into area into Luxray V, and then it's just like really bad for them. Uh, Aside from that, and you can like completely destroy the hand. This card is really powerful. And this is kind of stopping him from hoarding stuff. I don't know. I feel like do most of the lists play it? No, only this one. Oh, this one also does. But we'll talk about this list is pretty fun. Uh, but this list is very straightforward. Reduce your Calamitous Wasteland, increasing your retreat cost of basic non-fighting Pokemon, which actually does not increase the retreat cost of your this guy, which I forget the name of, Great Tusk, which actually doesn't really matter because its retreat cost is 3. But yeah, so you want to do that, and then you have double turbo. But obviously, you're probably going to run out of double turbo, and you need to play these supporters. So you play Professor Sada's Vitality to accelerate energy and draw cards, and mostly play a supporter that is ancient. And then you have this Explorer's Guidance. This is the same as Hapu. Look at the top 6 cards of your deck, and then you put 2 of them into your hand and discard the other 4, or the remaining one. So if you have 3 cards in your deck, you'll get 2 and discard 1. But this is really useful, I guess. I mean, it's certainly not a bad supporter. Yeah, okay, so some of the lists play supporters that aren't ancient, but obviously if you're doing that, then you're not milling 4, right? So that's a pretty big deal. But then they also run other attackers and stuff, so that's kind of why. This list is super straightforward, and I think it's pretty cool. I'm not sure how I feel about Hand Trimmer, but you do have a lot of ways to just mill 4 every turn. And you should be doing that every turn. You do have Hero's Cape and Ancient Booster Energy Capsule to give yourself lots of HP as well. And counter catch, of course, to like trap and just annoy your opponent, and it should be pretty good, pretty straightforward, pretty efficient. You do. Radiant Greninja could get trapped in the active. That is a thing that could happen. So I want to kind of warn against that, but for the most part, that's not going to happen too often, right? And you can just retreat, hopefully, unless this is in play. Which again, still, it's just two colors. You can attach double turbo, but overall, pretty straightforward. List, pretty cool. Um, and unlike Durant, you don't need all four not prized, even though you do have Hisuian and Heavy Ball. But this is easier to set up than Durant has more HP. It's just better all around, in my opinion. Other than you can't play boss, but you have counter catcher, so it's fine. And not custom catcher, prime catcher. You can do that as well, but nonetheless do because they have four counter catcher, and this list just wins two. Like you don't need that many. This list runs Mimikyu again with Psychic Energy. I really like it. Have said that before. Ditto to like be faster, um, and so we see a lot of like turbo style cards. And then we see similar stuff with just like milling, right? And you want to draw with through your deck, and you want to play your supporters because if you don't play your supporters, you're going to lose, right? That's quite frankly what's going to happen. No Force Seal Stone. I feel like a Force Seal Stone could be good with Town Store and a Pidgeot V. That seems like it would kind of make sense, but it's not here. But overall, pretty straightforward, pretty good. Um, and then this deck, again, pretty simple. We do see the Mimikyu 2 Psychics this time. No Ditto, no for like a turbo effect, but we do see TM Devolution in both of these last two lists. TM Devolution is a really interesting card. Obviously, it devolves your opponent's Pokemon, which is quite useful if they're a rare candy deck. That's the only time it's useful because you're going to attack and then pass it over to them. So if they can just play their Pokemon again, it's not going to do anything. But assuming they can't, if it's like rare candy, you can really catch your opponent off guard. In my opinion, it's not like an incredibly useful card, but I don't think it's awful either, especially if your opponent's not playing carefully. And then, of course, you have Mimikyu as well. You can also attack with Mimikyu, devolve, and get the KO that way. So that could be useful in certain scenarios. I wouldn't hate a Lost Vacuum either in an attack like this, but it's not super necessary. And then we do see Airy and Iono. In this list, we also see Eric's Invitation, uh, Airy, Iono, and Misfortune Sisters, so some more control aspects. Um, so you can kind of lean into that for counter catcher. I honestly wouldn't despise a block Snorlax. I saw a list that did have a block Snorlax. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, this has gotten a little hard to navigate, but let's see. Yeah, so this list runs. I don't think they won. I think they placed second, but it runs a block Snorlax in the deck, so then you can like gust up, counter catcher, and trap him in the active, which can be useful to catch him off guard. But anyway, these lists do not run that. Now, this final list here, though, does run Erika's Invitation and Airy and Misfortune Sisters and Iono. And so you can like trap, and they don't even run 8 of the supporters, all 8 that you can play. So that's a little surprising. And then we do see a Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane's really interesting. Fluttering in the night, that's a weird ability. Strike and Throw, that's just kind of, okay. Anyway, so you can attack with this, but the ability, as long as it's in the active, your opponent's active has no abilities except for this. This can be used to punish the Lost Zone if they're doing certain really like weird things. Right? If you start against Lost Zone, it's nice. You also see a skateboard giving you free retreat on Radiant Greninja, which is nice. Assuming you don't have Calamitous Wasteland in play. Well, I guess you could have free retreat if you had Calamitous Wasteland in play if you were like hit by like Cramorant. But anyway, this gives you free retreat if you have 30 HP less remaining, 30 HP or less remaining. If you have more than that, it's just one less, which is free on your other Pokemon. Hand Trimmer again coming in for a Seal Stone. A lot of text. This is much more techy than the other list, but still really cool. But anyway, I think Control and Mill are going to be fun. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Snorlax Control. I'm going to see if people ran it with Pidgeot. I didn't really see that very much. I guess a few people did. Anyone who like won. Oh, there's this list. Okay, this last list is super sick. I didn't talk about this one. It's really cool. They finished fourth in a tournament. And we got some really cool stuff here. So we have the Mantine, we have Great Tusk, so we can use Great Tusk as just a mill 4 option, which is really powerful, and you can copy it with Ditto as well. This is a Ditto toolbox. Copy stuff with Ditto. Regieleki to recover. Bouffalant to Lost Zone Energy. Bouffalant, I don't know if it's good or not. I mean, it's kind of bad, right? But you can play it, and it can be good in certain scenarios. Regieleki plus Bouffalant kind of. So I'm a control player. It notoriously gives you like a playable Lost Zone matchup, Lost Zone Giratina matchup, but it's still not a great matchup because there are a lot of things to deal with. Are there any psychic? Yeah, there's psychic energy, so you can do Mimikyu. It's a really hard matchup. It's like brutal for control, but you can win it if you play really well and like your opponent plays a little off. Which honestly, if you're playing control most of the time your opponent's not going to play quite right. But yeah, obviously you have Snorlax, you have the Mantine and all that good stuff. Misfortune Sisters, Airy, you just got a lot of disruption aspects. Calamitous Wasteland. So I don't know. I feel like Calamitous Wasteland isn't useful. I guess it could be useful in certain scenarios, but you have Mawile and you have Snorlax to just completely retreat stop or stop retreating. Uh, Overall, pretty cool list. Um, it's honestly pretty normal. I know a lot of people aren't super familiar with control, but this is relatively normal. Um, Hammers, I think hand trimmer is potentially insane to massively like destroy your opponent's resources, and you can like really disrupt them and then go in with the late game Great Tusk. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to like look at slots you can cut as well because obviously control. This has a lot going on, and I'd like to see another Ditto because Pokemon recovery is pretty not great. You have Yell's Cheer. You're kind of relying on Yell's Cheer, honestly. Yell's Cheer is like a weird card. In some senses, viewed as like kind of underwhelming because it doesn't do anything for you right away, but it also is like a rod. In some sense, you almost never play it in your deck as like a rod type card to fulfill that same role, but it can be used for that, and it's really powerful. Silene is obviously good as well. The one Silene is kind of sketchy, although I guess it's fine. I mean, you can recover pretty much anything with Regieleki. Um, yeah, this isn't like a deep dive into control right now, though. I think the Luxurious Cape's nice. Oh, I'd like a Defiance Vest. I think Defiance Vest, drop a Bravery Charm for Defiance Vest. I'd 100% do that. I could consider cutting a Bravery Charm. Uh, and I could honestly even consider dropping Luxurious Cape. Although I know that's like kind of, as I said, you play control how you want, and that's what I'd do. And then I'd probably get burned for some of those plays. But yeah, also 3 research. I'd definitely drop a research for an Iono. I feel like Iono is almost always better than research in this deck because it's shuffle draw. So you're not like losing your resources, which in some sense you want to lose your resources, but oftentimes you don't. Um, I don't know. You got like Ditto, which is kind of weird. Ditto always has weird interactions, but you do have Hand Trimmer. You can actually discard your own stuff with Hand Trimmer. Obviously, Hand Trimmer you're looking to use at certain turns. Um, I don't know. Tell me if you want like a full post rotation control breakdown or how to build control. If you'd be interested in a video like that. Um, Aside from that, this deck like definitely loses to Lost Zone. I'm just gonna say that. As I said, you can do Regieleki Buffalon. Technically, Mimikyu can be useful against Lost Zone if your opponent plays like super bad or super weird. Like if your opponent just evolves all the Giratina and V's into V stars, and then like Lost Zone's like Sable. I don't know. It can be technically usable. Probably not, but it is a thing. Misfortune Sisters though, um, is not two misfortune. You could play 4 or like Airy, like 2 Misfortune, 1 Airy. You're probably not winning that matchup. 2 Penny. I don't know. There's some interesting stuff. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I kind of got down a rabbit hole, but I think we got some cool decks and control decks that are this control deck. Like this is how I like control. This, in my opinion, is like a cool deck. I know some people won't agree with that, but I don't know. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing, liking, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.